weapon or a drug. You could be the outcast, be the backlash of somebody's lack of love. Or you can start speaking up. Nothing's gonna hurt you the way that words do when they settle neath your skin. Kept on the inside, no sunlight, sometimes the shadow wins. But I wonder what would happen if you say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave, just wanna see you. I just wanna see you, just wanna see you. I wanna see you be brave, just wanna see you. I just wanna see you, just wanna see you. Everybody's been there, everybody's been stared down by the enemy, falling for the fear and dust of disappearing, bow down to the mighty. Don't run, stop holding your tongue. Maybe there's a way out of the cage where you live. Maybe one of these days you can let the light in and show me how big your brave is. Say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave. And since your history of silence won't do you any good, did you think it would? Let your words be anything but empty. Why don't you tell them the truth? Say what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave with what you wanna say and let the words fall out. Honestly, I wanna see you be brave, just wanna see you. I just wanna see you, just wanna see you. I wanna see you be brave, just wanna see you. I just wanna see you, just wanna see you. See you be brave, just wanna see you. I just wanna see you, just wanna see you. See you be brave, just wanna see you. I just wanna see you, just wanna see you. See you be brave.
Thank you so much for that beautiful performance, Roni and Alana. Let's give them another round of applause. So welcome to This Is My Brave Boston. I'm Elizabeth Driscoll.
And I'm Angela Kaloudis.
And we will be your hosts for this evening. We would like to thank everyone for coming tonight to witness Boston shine a light on mental health issues to end stigma.
First and foremost, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Our 2018 season of shows would not be possible without the support of our national sponsors, Synovian, Sage Therapeutics, and Alchemies. We would also like to thank our local sponsors, McLean Hospital, the Renfrew Center, and Walden Behavioral Health.
We would also like to thank the Renfrew Center of Massachusetts for generously donating our rehearsal space again this year. And we would really like to say a special welcome to our Boston alumni cast members from years past. And we're really happy you're here with us tonight.
We extend a special thank you to the Fenway Group for printing our programs,
Jim Dillon of Caxton Media for his videography skills, Douglas Lovell for being our photographer and volunteer at large,
Roni Levy, and Alana Kaufman for their beautiful performance of Sarah Bareilles' song, Brave.
Our incomparable and invaluable volunteers, Karen Morrison, Meg Wichnick, Lacey Vogel, and Kara Kaufman.
Mehdi Ralphie for volunteering his time and expertise as our tech director, doing all things tech, lighting, sound, and stage.
All of the bakers and bakeries who donated baked goods that we'll be selling at the Depressed Cake Shop in the lobby at the reception after the show. I didn't know that would get it laugh. Those bakers and bakeries are Lillian Pierce and Meg Wichnick and Buttermilk Baking Company and Kitchen Millie.
And Lavender Florist in Groton for the beautiful flowers.
This show would not have been possible without the generous support of all of our sponsors and volunteers, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
So, before we get started, a few housekeeping items. Everyone should have received a program as you entered the theater. Inside, you'll find information about our cast and sponsors.
So we invite you to take out your cell phones. We are a very social organization, and we want you to take lots of pictures, selfies, even video clips, and share them on your social networks with the hashtag Live Brave and Storytelling Saves Lives. What you are about to experience defines what it means to live brave, and we need your help to tell the world that we're here. So share away. Our volunteers are going to do their best to retweet and regram as many posts as possible to extend our reach.
Now would also be a good time to make sure your phone is turned to silent for the duration of the show.
And if you need to step out of the show for any reason, feel free to do so.
Since This Is My Brave is a storytelling organization, Elizabeth and I thought it would make sense to tell you the story of how we learned about This Is My Brave and our reasons for getting involved. I learned about This Is My Brave through Elizabeth. She was looking for volunteers for the 2017 This Is My Brave Boston show, and since I am passionate about advocacy and reducing the stigma around mental illness, I knew I had to be involved. Seeing firsthand how the show was healing for many last year, it didn't take much for me to agree to co-produce the show with her this year. Professionally, I'm a licensed mental health counselor in private practice and at the Renfrew Center, a facility treating individuals with eating disorders and other co-occurring diagnoses. Personally and professionally, a topic I often find myself curious about is connection. With the help of researcher storyteller Brene Brown, my dear friends and colleagues, and my clients, I have learned that it is in our attempts to make ourselves seem more acceptable and whole that we try to avoid and disown the difficult parts of our story, and therefore we lose the opportunity for growth-fostering connection. I have felt so connected to these brave storytellers sitting up here because they have shared their darkest moments. And I hope listening to them tonight not only reduces the stigma attached to mental illness, but helps spark the vulnerability that is needed for the integration of all of our experiences and for the necessary connection within all of us. I am absolutely elated and honored to be standing up here with the wonderful Elizabeth Driscoll and our inspiring storytellers.
Well, let me say first that I could not have made this show happen without Angela's help, and I am so lucky that she agreed to co-produce with me. Angela is one of those people that all of you will want to be friends with because she's brilliant, she's energetic, she's really funny, and she is a fierce advocate for mental health. Thank you, Angela. When I volunteered to produce the 2017 Boston This Is My Brave show, I did so for personal and professional reasons. I believe in the mission of This Is My Brave to end the stigma surrounding mental illness. I'm a psychologist in private practice, and the stigma associated with mental illness is one of the major barriers my patients must conquer on their journey to wellness. In my personal life, I am living with mental illness, and I know firsthand the role shame and stigma play. I am also living my life well with mental illness, and I know recovery is possible. In producing last year's show, I was sure that becoming involved in mental health advocacy would give me a tremendous amount of satisfaction in supporting a cause I believed in so strongly. What I didn't know was that I would become part of a new family, a family of awe-inspiring individuals who know the freeing power of speaking your truth, the validating power of sharing your story, and the healing power of being vulnerable. This has been one of the most humbling and transformative experiences of my life. and you all are about to understand why. We're going to take you on a journey, and you will laugh and you will cry. You will be enlightened and inspired, because this is the reality. 1 in 4 Americans live with a mental health disorder, but we don't talk about it enough. And because we don't talk about it enough, people often suffer in silence. But this ends and changes tonight, right here on this stage. We're shining a light on mental illness to show the world that we are your friends, your family members, your colleagues, your neighbors, and your community leaders. We hope that through our storytelling, you will better understand mental illness and will be able to support those in your life who may experience it. Before we begin the show, I would like to introduce to you the Executive Director and co-founder of This Is My Brave, Jennifer Marshall.
Thank you, Elizabeth and Angela. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm Jennifer Marshall, and I live with type 1 bipolar disorder. Over the past 12 years, I've been hospitalized 5 times for manic episodes. The first time came out of nowhere after barely sleeping for a week. The second time happened 2 weeks later when I was admitted to the psychiatric ward on Christmas Day. During the years I was having my children, twice I was handcuffed and hospitalized by police officers, taken to the hospital in a police car. And the most recent episode happened just this past fall after the death of my This Is My Brave co-founder and dear friend, Anne-Marie Ames. She suffered a heart attack. My journey with mental illness is not unlike the way most of us struggle with it. I hid my pain and feared I would never get better. Thankfully, that horrible chapter of my life didn't last forever, and I found solid recovery in 2010. And when I began on that recovery path, I was desperate to find stories from individuals who had found a way to live successful, fulfilling lives despite this lifelong condition that has no cure. The only problem was that no one in my circle of friends or family was talking about it. So I did what most of us do when we're searching for something, and I turned to the internet. I found a community of people who were blogging about their mental health conditions in such a way that I was inspired to share mine. I began writing my own story on a blog that I titled bipolarmomlife.com. And I have a quick story about that. When I first met Anne-Marie, we were at a party introduced by friends, and she took one look at me. I had just opened up publicly about my story, and she said, "You're bipolar mom." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Most people call me Jen." But it was chemistry that night. We met and fell in love talking about the fact that we were both so passionate about mental health and mental health awareness, and she joined me. And after 2 years of blogging, that eventually led me to launch This Is My Brave with Anne-Marie. The power of This Is My Brave lies in the power of storytelling, a person's ability to be vulnerable, raw, and honest. These days, we put our highlight reels on social media, afraid to show any flaws or struggles. But it's when we open up about our journeys through darkness that we not only help ourselves to heal, but countless others who come to our shows, like you're here tonight, who read our stories on the blog and see our videos on YouTube. Those struggling silently find hope in knowing that if someone up there could get through it, maybe I can get through it too. So when one person decides to be brave, they give others the permission to do the same, and I like to call it brave multiplying brave. Since 2014, This Is My Brave has produced 42, I think, I'm losing track because there's so many, unique shows in cities all across the United States, and we also went international last year with shows in Australia. This show tonight is going to be our 43rd production to date, and we're so thrilled that you're here. It's a privilege and an honor to be in the audience to hear these brave stories. 2018 marks our 4th year of helping people tell the world that mental illness is a part of me. It's not all of me, it's just a part of my story. Our YouTube channel contains over 650 personal stories from our shows. This year we're working with volunteers to produce 20 unique shows in the US alone, And we're also producing our first documentary film thanks to a prestigious grant that we were awarded by Alkermes. Our organization was devastated last fall by the sudden loss of our co-founder, Anne Marie. This Is My Brave wouldn't be here today if she hadn't joined me in what at times feels like the impossible task of tackling the stigma surrounding mental illness. It's been difficult for me to imagine going on without her, but I know that she would have wanted me to press forward. She wanted all of us to press forward. As she said during the production of our first show, This Is My Brave is like we're putting a pebble into the lake and it's gonna ripple out and more people will get to hear the stories. Tonight we honor her memory as we do with each of our shows. Those ripples she spoke of have turned into waves. This Is My Brave's mission is to get to the place where one day we live in a world where we don't have to call it brave for talking openly about mental illness. We will simply call it talking. And we're doing this again tonight, one person and one brave story at a time. So let's get started. Please welcome our first brave storyteller to the stage, KASEY, ELLIOT, MAHER, performing Mental Illness is My Superpower.
Several years ago, I read a book, and it was entitled A Course in Miracles. And the definition of a miracle, according to this book, is when you shift your perception from fear into love. Each one of you tonight will experience a miracle. And being a yoga and meditation teacher, I believe the best way to prepare yourself to receive that miracle is to connect to your breath. Also, on a completely selfish note, I am extremely nervous, and it's gonna help me to breathe with y'all before I go and do what I'm about to do. So if you would humor me for a minute and meditate with me. So you uncross your legs. You roll your shoulders up, back, and down. And then just become aware of your breath. It's called conscious breathing. It could be the first time you've paid attention to your breath all day. But take in a few deep inhales and deep exhales. And then slowly begin to close your eyes. Focus on the rise and fall of your breath, the rise and fall of your belly, the rise and fall of your chest. Continue breathing this way for a few more moments. And I'm going to cue us in a few moments to breathe in together. And when we exhale, I want us to sigh out the exhalation. But when we sigh it out, I want you to sigh out any fear or judgment surrounding around mental illness. Because I want you to be open to receive the miracle. Take a few more breaths. We'll all inhale together and sigh it out. One more time. Now slowly open your eyes. All you have to do for the rest of the evening is sit back and experience a miracle. I stand before you as a woman who has experienced severe depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, ADD. I have been verbally abused, mentally abused, and sexually abused. I have been bulimic, and I have overeaten. I experienced postpartum depression with both of my boys, and I've attempted suicide 3 times. I've jumped off a bridge, and I've overdosed twice. I've been hospitalized 3 times. After the suicide attempts and the hospitalizations, I would be diagnosed with severe depression, OCD, ADD, eating disorders, PTSD, and suicidal tendencies to act upon. Those diagnoses would eventually become my superpowers. I know it sounds completely crazy. Let me tell you my story. After I received my diagnosis, AKA my superpowers, I did something far, far different than accept them. I owned them. I believed them to be a part of my identity, a part of my body, a part of my mind, and a part of my spirit. Now, by owning them and believing them to be a part of my identity, it kept me very comfortable in the victim state I was used to, except now I was the abuser. It also introduced me to 3 of my favorite drugs: blame, shame, and guilt. I made others feel shame for my diagnosis. I blamed others for my diagnosis, and I made other people feel guilt for my diagnosis. And clearly, at this point in my life, I wasn't super popular. I had alienated myself from most of my friends and some of my family. And when I had run out of people to blame, shame, and guilt, I then began to use the drugs upon myself. Now, this way of life wasn't going to work. My body, my mind, and my spirit were in complete despair, so I knew something had to shift. And it wasn't until after I had my first son. He was 6 months old, and I was sitting outside of our home in Texas at the time. I was sleep training him. That's a whole different story. And I was sleep training him, and I had in this moment what Sister Oprah calls an aha moment. He was staring and smiling at me, and I was looking at him, and I could not comprehend how in the world I, along with the help of my husband, who's here somewhere, could bring such a beautiful creature into this world. And as I was staring there, I realized at 6 months old, I did not have PTSD. At 6 months old, I did not have anxiety. At 6 months old, I wasn't bulimic. And at 6 months old, I wasn't severely depressed. Therefore, in my mind, at that time, I realized that I wasn't mentally ill. But I knew if I continued the drug use with blame, shame, and guilt, I would then start to blame, shame, and guilt that beautiful child. And if I did that, he would end up where I was, mentally ill, and I couldn't have that. Now, in this moment, I did realize what we are all born with. We are all born with divine love, divine strength, divine wisdom, and divine courage. In that moment, I connected to the divinity that abides in me. That is when my diagnosis became my superpower. I realized how strong I was. I shifted my perception of my mental illness, of my diagnosis, from a place of fear to a place of love. And when you do that, you connect deeper to the divinity that abides in you, and you become stronger. You become super. Now, you're probably wondering, what's divinity? How do I connect to it? Because I want to be super too. Who wouldn't? My definition of divinity is this: it's a power greater than ourselves. The love this divine source has for us is incomprehensible. We can't understand it. Some people call it God, some people call it love, Lord, I don't care what you call it. You just need to know that something greater than yourself loves you unconditionally. Now, how you connect to it, this is how I have found works for me. You're going to have to ask yourself some uncomfortable questions, painful questions, and you're going to have to answer them honestly. And when you do that, you're going to experience an emotion, and I want you to name the emotion that's arising in your body. And then, once you've named the emotion, I want you to figure out where it is. And once you figure out where it is, I want you to find a physical practice with the intention of releasing that emotion from the body, from the mind, and from the spirit. I don't care what the physical practice is. I choose yoga, but some people run, box, as long as it's a bag and not a person. But you find a healthy way to release that emotion from the body. And when you do this, you will connect to the divinity that abides in you, and you will become stronger. It works every single time. There is no form of abuse that can take this connection away. We all have the power to do it. Now, when I was doing this soul searching and this work, I realized that I picked up my diagnosis when I asked myself those uncomfortable questions. And if I could pick up my diagnosis then, I could find another way to do things. And I did. I began to do yoga, I meditated, and I walked and connected to nature. And when I did that, I became stronger. And now listen, you're going to feel so strong when you do this. And I don't want to burst your bubble, but pain will come back because pain does not discriminate. It doesn't care what color you are, where you're from, how much money you have. Pain is inevitable. It's a part of life. 8 years ago, when my dad died from a drunk driving accident, depression came back. And I said to it, you're more than welcome to stay, but you're staying on my terms. And my terms are this. You cannot and you will not kill me. You can only make me stronger, make me super. And then 2 years ago, my mom died, and I was sitting next to her along with my sister and my brother and her 3 best friends as she took her last breath. At that moment, I did not realize the amount of grief and despair I was going to experience. Everything came back. My eating disorder, anxiety, and I had suicidal thoughts almost every single day for a year. But I dug as deep as I possibly could into the depths of my soul, and I said to it, you are more than welcome to stay, but you're staying on my terms, and my terms are this. You cannot and you will not kill me. You can only make me stronger, make me super. And just when I was coming out of the depths of the despair, of the grief of my mother, my brother died. He died 1 year ago, and he died from his mental illness. He was also verbally and mentally and sexually abused, and he had severe PTSD and severe anxiety. And as I stand here in front of you, I'm still in a tremendous amount of pain. But I dig as deep as I possibly can, and I say to it, you are more than welcome to stay, but you're staying on my terms, and my terms are this. You cannot and will not kill me. You can only make me stronger. You killed my brother, but you won't kill me. And you can't take my children, my niece, my sister, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles, my husband, or my friends. You have lived in our family for far too long, and it stops here, and it stops with me. I will use my divinity. I will connect to my superpowers and teach others how to do that, and I will help heal. So I have to ask you, will you join me? Can you shift your perspective from fear into love, from weakness into strength, and from something that you think could kill you to something that you think can make you super? My name is KASEY ELLIOT MAHER. This is my brave, and this is my superpower. Okay. I've always wanted a standing ovation. Okay, our next beautiful, brave soul is CHRISTIE Pearl performing Time to Be Me.
Thank you, KASEY. Good evening. Yeah, whew. No meditation from me. This past Christmas, one of my aunts surprised the whole family with a really special gift. She had CDs made of old cassette tapes that my grandma had recorded years ago. This was how my mom's family, who had moved to Virginia, used to communicate with everyone back in North Carolina. Not everyone could read, and at that time, nobody had the money for long-distance phone calls. Grandma would record herself and Grandpa on one side, talking about the latest news, and then on the other side, she would play the piano and everybody would sing. What you didn't necessarily hear was the voices of the family demons lurking in the room. Demons named depression, anxiety, trauma, and the worst one, addiction. In my family, there were a lot of broken hearts, but there were a lot of gifts too. Those CDs are priceless to me because music is one of the best gifts in my family. My immediate family consisted of my dad, mom, and me. The family demons were alive and well in our household too. But there were happy times being at Grandma's house, which was next door to ours, when my entire extended family crowded into the living room to sing and play music together. Like everyone else, I began playing Grandma's piano when I was young. And in addition to her music, her faith influenced me as well. Although we never openly talked about it, almost every day I ran the short distance to her house to escape the turmoil in mine, desperate for the sanctuary that her piano and her reassuring presence provided. Now, I wish I could say that with my family's musical legacy, my dad's rebellious streak, my mom's fierce protection of me, and my grandma's influence, I developed a strong sense of myself that carried me through. Unfortunately, that was not the case. I stopped playing the piano. I was sad and withdrawn. I felt like God didn't care about me and my problems. There was a darkness inside me that sometimes made it hard to breathe. At home, I had always dealt with things by disappearing. For years, like a piece of furniture in the background, I blended into the scenery. Eventually, my family disintegrated and my parents divorced, and the numbness in which I had been frozen for most of my life melted into a deep depression. For years, I wandered around my life, dragging all of my baggage down all the wrong roads. I was a ghost in my own life. During my teenage years and 20s, I made my own bad decisions, including a suicide attempt. It looked like the family demons might win with me too. But I kept going. I was able to start imagining a different life for myself. I went to therapy. I took medication when I needed help putting one foot in front of the other. I leaned into my faith. I read books. I listened to inspirational CDs. I journaled. I watched Oprah. And I devoured every other resource I could get my hands on to try to get better. I showed up in person for a seminar called Career Decisions for Adult Children of Dysfunctional Families. It was a 6-week course, people. I started to believe that it would all be worthwhile eventually. I gradually learned that it was okay to take up space in the world. I'm still working on that. I found my way back to music, back to God, and after years of blending into the scenery, I found myself on center stage. So the girl who barely said 3 words during her entire childhood, now I was singing solos in front of hundreds of people. Of course, the old voices in my head called me an imposter. Who do you think you are? Those people don't want to listen to you. But one night, while waiting in the wings to step onto the stage for a concert, I suddenly had the sensation that my legs were as strong and firmly planted in the floor as a tree trunk, with roots of life spreading out from me, and a deep sense of belonging flooded through me. Eventually, I realized that despite this battle that was in my head, I was meant to be there. That day was almost 15 years ago now. I've learned that despite everything that happened, I have something to offer other people, and that is ultimately what it's all about. So around that time, I was journaling, and all of a sudden I realized my sentences were rhyming, so I'd like to close with this poem for you. Time to be me. There are so many ways my heart is yearning. I can barely find the ways of discerning all the things that I am learning. My heart is crying out for all the pieces of me to be put back together, but there are so many barriers, it seems. I feel like I've been searching for years. I walk through the streets, I hold back the tears. Behind my pretty smile, I'm dying. I'm sick and tired of all this lying. All I ever wanted was to be set free. I'm taking off the mask. It's time to be me. I'm sick and tired of playing nice. I'm sick and tired of paying the price. I pawned my soul to the lowest bidder. Now I'm buying it back. No deals, no kidding. It's gotten to the point the price is too high. I can't keep living this lie. What everybody else wants me to be. I'm taking off the mask. It's time to be me. God gave me a story only I can tell. He sent me a song. The notes just fell down from heaven to set me free. I won't be ashamed. It's time to be me. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys are the best audience. Our next wonderful performer is Zach ORLOV performing Sacred Odyssey.
Poseidon, the mythical Greek god of the sea, tortured Odysseus for 10 years, preventing him from coming home. Bipolar disorder is my nemesis, my Poseidon. It has kept me trapped at sea and unable to come home. My story tonight is not so much about navigating the treacherous waters of bipolar mood swings as it is about what I do to stay well now that I'm stable and on shore. I was on my way to qualify for the '92 Summer Barcelona Olympic Games as a member of the U.S. sailing team when tragedy struck. Monday, May 26, 1990, I was in a car accident. It was devastating. My car was struck in an intersection and I was thrown through a telephone pole. It took hours to cut me free from that car. I remember the hushed sounds of the surgical suite. I remember looking down and saying, everything is going to be fine. I knew that if I could just get back out on that race course, everything would be fine. Well, everything wasn't going to be fine. I woke up with a traumatic brain injury that made my bipolar illness wildly volatile. And the words that I spoke, they didn't make any sense. Everything wasn't going to be fine. A year later, I sought admission to McLean with profound catatonic depression. That was a fateful admission, though. I met a psychiatrist who knew how to reach me when others couldn't. Jeff had kind words for me. He told me that we would use all of modern medicine, but mostly I remember him telling me that I was pure, perfect, and whole. I didn't know what those words meant, but I felt them deep in my soul. Those words reminded me that I was a vast part of a whole. It reminded me that I wasn't alone. That loving reverence for me as a whole person made all the difference. I was not afraid. Unfortunately, I wasn't responding either. 5 weeks later, I agreed to a course of electroconvulsive therapy. Luckily, ECT, as it's called, worked for me, and I could move on with my life. Years before my accident, I sought out dance as a way of building inner core strength. Even back then, Poseidon was making my mind race. I was searching for answers when my coach showed me how to calm the wind, the waves, and my racing thoughts. She taught me to lie still and imagine my breath as it traveled through my body. That seemingly simple method worked for me. I could study, I could train. I've always looked to mindful meditation, breathing, and dance as a way to be calm and whole. Now, decades later, I dance Argentine tango for many of those same reasons. Tango is healing. It helps me keep balance and brings me joy. I'm passionate about dancing in a wordless dialogue of invitation and response. Once the embrace and the music starts, everything dissolves into a single axis, into what is now, into the present, into the dance. I'm available for this tango, this magical healing tango, because I do the hard work of living with bipolar disorder. I build resilience. I work at it every day. I fully believe that resilience can be learned. We have the science. First, I treat sleep sacred. It's the cornerstone of my well-being. Moderate aerobic exercise and some resistance training is essential. Whatever you do is good. Tango is the trifecta of building new neural pathways. My morning yoga and meditation practice helps me focus for the day. I choose my food carefully because it helps maintain my mood. I work hard to communicate and collaborate with my psychiatrist and my therapist. I use a patient network with patients like me. For the last 7 years, I've used a daily mood monitoring app that gives me a type of metadata to help make decisions with. I fill my heart with love and kindness. I practice gratitude as a way to stay grounded and lovingly aware. Love is the unifying force that binds me, body, mind, and soul. Possibly it unifies us all. I live with an open heart and work to keep my family and friends close. My brother Nick and his wife Sarah and their family Alex, Sydney, and Mackenzie, I know you're here. You have been with me for every nautical mile of my life, through 9 hospitalizations and so much more. I love you guys. My tango friends, my yoga friends, my sailing friends, my McLean friends, and my new brave friends. You all lift me above the abyss. I am forever grateful. And my son Jonas, well, you fill my heart with joy. I love you. I'm so proud of you. I can see the gifts of living with bipolar disorder. It has taught me to seek knowledge. It has taught me to seek truth, my own truth and the eternal. It has taught me to seek joy, love life, and work tirelessly to be part of it. Nelson Mandela, a true North Star for me, read William Henley's poem Invictus during his decades lost at sea, tortured and imprisoned. I read it part. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods gave me this unconquerable soul. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. Let me end by saying that I must give Poseidon his due. I'm good with that. But I'm not good seeing more and more innocent people struck down by mental illness. everything is not going to be just fine. We should not fear Poseidon or pursuing difficult answers. With love in our hearts and our many friends by our sides and science standing watch, we can see through this. Thank you. Our next presenter is Suzanne GARVERICH, performing This Does Not Preclude Me. There you go.
This does not preclude me. I don't feel like I belong in this world. I am damaged. I just want to disappear, die. All I can do to hold on is to know that someday I will be able to end my life, to not have to be in this world and be in so much pain, misery, deep sadness. From my earliest memory, these were my all-consuming thoughts. This was the way I walked through the world. By the time I reached my early 20s, I could not stay out of mental hospitals. Manic episodes associated with my bipolar disorder, excessive drinking, dangerously promiscuous behavior, getting myself into debt, followed by being thrown into the depths of the deepest, darkest, soul-swallowing depression, debilitating panic attacks associated with my anxiety disorder, feeling as if I was going to shatter into pieces from the panic, being so sensitive to the sounds and lights of the world associated with my post-traumatic stress disorder, making it nearly impossible for me to be out in the world without feeling like someone was going to hurt me. All of this was way too much. I was a failure, a waste of life, way too sick to be part of this world. I didn't see it at the time, but I was brave. Even though I was in the throes of my mental illness, there was something inside of me wanting to find a light at the end of the deep, dark tunnel that insisted on me ending my life. My brave then took the form of getting sober. When I got sober, all the reasons I drank and did drugs came flooding in, but now I was able to really face them. I was very lucky to find therapists and psychiatrists that I trusted, and most importantly, trusted me, something I know that is not offered to many people due to the stigma of mental illness. I continued to build my support system, building relationships with healthy people who, like me, were dedicated to working on themselves. They understood what I was dealing with and so freely gave me their love and support. What also was and is still so healing is that they too needed me, and my giving them love and support helped me feel part of, feel like I mattered and belonged in this world. Now to show up in this world, to be part of this world that I so thought I was too damaged for, to start showing up no matter how depressed, how manic, how anxious, how hypervigilant I was. I needed to learn that my condition at the time did not preclude me from being good enough, important enough to be part of this world. Through a lot of work, I started to make a place for myself. I, along with the words, love, hugs, phone calls of my friends and family, literally pulled myself out of bed even when I was truly convinced that being in the world was way too painful. By showing up at work and for myself one day at a time, I began to deal myself in. During this time, I also began to understand the different types of showing up. Sometimes it meant literally showing up for work. Sometimes it meant taking a mental health day to take care of myself. And sometimes it meant taking medical leave so I could keep literally showing up for life. I stand before you today, a 44-year-old woman, once a little girl whose consuming thought was that all I had to do was to hold on until I was 30, and then when the all-encompassing pain that was on my life was still there, I would be able to give myself permission to end my life. Today, I do not go to bed every night praying to God not to have me wake up. Instead, I go to bed tired from having such a full life, And when I do wake up, I am not so angry and in despair that God did not answer my wishes. Just a few months ago, I had a manic episode on my way to work. I started having visual hallucinations. Instead of turning around, telling myself I was too sick, too crazy to matter, I walked into my boss's office, a boss who I trust, which is very important. As I talked to her about what I was experiencing, I was telling her I was worth it. That although I needed help, I was still the very competent, dependable, necessary person she has worked with for 6 years. I showed up, kept dealing myself in. I knew that no matter how sick I felt at the time, I still belonged in this world, that I mattered. My purpose today is that I want to make sure people know that they are not alone, that they are not damaged, too sick, too much for this world. I want to be that boss that someone who is struggling can talk to. By sharing my story, I want people to know that although hope may feel unreachable, it is not, and people like me can hold hope until they can find it, till they can deal themselves in. This is my brave today. What is yours? Thank you. Up next is Robin Owens performing Alone Again.
Hello. My name is Robin Owens. This is a song that I wrote a few weeks back about 6th grade me going through a bout of insomnia so bad I was not sleeping at all, and depression and anxiety secondary to PTSD that I was just then realizing I had. This is kind of a song I wrote, kind of addressing myself as a very young person going through so much and just needing a hug and to know that everything would be okay. So this is a song I wrote to tell myself then that I'm fine now, or as good as I've ever been. So I hope that you find something you can connect to in it, and it's called Alone Again. I would go back in time and give you a suit of armor. I'd give you mine. I would grant you peace of mind. Everything gets better if you just give it time. I couldn't help you then. Now that I know I can, darling, I promise you, you'll never be alone again. I would go back in time and hold you all through the night till you stop crying. And I would wipe your eyes and show you how I'm alright and teach you how to fight the good fight.
again.
Thank you so much. And up next, we have the incomparable Sarah BENESI performing an open letter.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so this is an open letter to my depression and anxiety and OCD and all of those little shits. You're beside me as I type. You're hovering, Constance. I don't appreciate it. I've been polite, I know. I've shared my bed and blanket. I've asked if scrambled or over-easy eggs would calm and better prepare you for the day. I've checked all your boxes, so I know this seems out of character. It isn't, Constance. It isn't. I just haven't been the best communicator. So, here goes. I'm mad. No, let me rephrase. Mad sounds sweet, like I'm twirling my hair and giggling in between outbursts. That's not it. I'm pissed. You've overstayed your welcome. Decades overstayed. Let's replay some of your greatest hits. Track 1. You tagged along on my vacation to Florida. I've never been much of a sleeper, so I said sure to your ghost stories. You'd reached round 3 of reasons I'm not invited to more birthday parties when you overheard yelling in the next room. I begged you to ignore it. It wasn't for us, Constance. You pinned me to the fitted sheet and screamed, "Listen, you, a principal bleeding ears with banty screeches, me, the PA system. Listen, listen, listen. You, a mortician for the feeling, me, a dirt connoisseur. When I flunked, you shook me. Shook my arms, shook my legs, shook my neck, shook every piece of me like a newborn tree in a hurricane. I couldn't stop, Constance. I couldn't breathe, Constance. I was 10 years old and thought I was dying, Constance. I should have left you in Florida. Track 2. You haunted me during homework. You licked your lips and just waited to devour me. I didn't care if my S mirrored one on a computer screen. I didn't care if the straightness of my R could be measured with a level. You did. You, Constance. After writing each letter in my name, you forced me to pause and analyze its curves or straightness or alignment on the page. When it wasn't up to your standards, you demanded, start over, start over, start over, make it perfect. I countered that it looked fine. No one would notice. Start over, make it perfect. No one will like you. You convinced me, Constance. So I erased and analyzed, erased and analyzed, and erased and analyzed over and over and over. I didn't stop when I made you happy because that moment never came. I stopped and my erasing tore a hole in the paper and there was nothing to do but cry. Your release was mastering my strings with knives. I should have left you in that chair. Track 3, you were my son. I told you I was my own son and there wasn't room for you. You kicked in the door anyway, closed the curtains and clicked off the lights anyway, chained me to my bed anyway. You chained me there for weeks on end, said, no food, no water, no friends. You don't deserve it. You deserve to swim with the shadows. When I unlocked the chain, you were my son still. You bullied me into questioning every piece of myself, what I said, how I smiled, how I laughed, if I was funny enough, sweet enough, smart enough, if I was too funny, too sweet, too smart. You forced me through so many police lineups that I stopped seeing myself. At night, you replayed films of my behavior, analyze, again. I dozed to the soundtrack of your anger, and I woke to the same. In your reviews, I'd always fucked up. I should have left you in bed. Closing track. You're here, but I've discovered headphones. You try to tell me that I'm not enough, that the seconds I'm relaxing, I should be working, that I should stop trying so hard, that I'm no good. You try to seduce me to dismiss my dreams and marry safety instead. You try, but you're a whisper. I'm louder. Your efforts aren't okay. No, let me rephrase. They're offensive, Constance. You are the worst. You are selfish and greedy, but no longer master of my strings. Your efforts aren't working. I have things to do. I'm revoking your privileges. You can't tell me I'm worthless. You can't bully me into submission. You can't tell me I'm not good enough, not talented enough, not cool enough. You cannot. You cannot spread rumors about me like I'm not in the room. That is not your right. Do you hear me, Constance? That is not your right. I'm here. I'm saying no thank you. I've decided I'm an A+. I've decided I'm an A+ because of my scars, not in spite of them. I've decided that. I'm in control. It's time to leave, Constance. You are unneeded and unwanted, Constance. Get out, get out, get out. Go, Constance. I am enough. I'm leaving you here. Thank you. Our next performer is Nneka Hall performing My Rebirth, A Semblance of Normalcy.
I am the mother of 4, 2 sunshines, ages 17 and 12, an angel baby who would be turning 8 in August, and a beautiful rainbow who is 3. On August 26, 2010, with 5 little words, "I'm sorry there's no heartbeat," my entire world collapsed. My daughter, Anaya Marie, was stillborn on August 27th at 2:33 a.m. She was perfect in every way but one. She looked like she was simply asleep, so I found myself shaking her with hopes that they had made a mistake. Sadly, no mistake had been made, and I found myself leaving the hospital 2 days later with a memory box and several prescriptions, 1 antidepressant, 1 for anxiety, and 1 for sleep, the tools to end my own life if I chose. I was diagnosed with major depression when I was 9. My normal response to blue spells was to spend days in my bed in total darkness until I was somehow able to recover. In the months leading up to my daughter's stillbirth, I found myself reaching out to labor and delivery because I knew something was wrong. They accredited my paranoia to my depressive disorder and the problems I was having with my then husband, so I was hospitalized for what was assumed to be depression. I was in no way equipped for my daughter's death. I had to plan a funeral, back to school shopping for my older 2, attempt to repair the rift in my relationship with my husband, deal with work, who had the opinion, since there was no baby, there should be no maternity leave. My milk came in, my body was betraying me. I couldn't sleep, and as a result, my mind began to betray me. My oldest daughter was ill, so bed was not an option. I began to use the prescriptions to escape. It was a conversation that I had with my grandmother that hurt me most when she said, "This is not how we act when these things happen. When I lost my son, I just moved on." This was the first week. The memorial service was a blur. I was angry with my husband for not being present when our daughter was born and for only arriving the morning of the memorial service. At the time, I needed him, and he wasn't there. He told me that I needed to move on, and only then could we be together. He left the day after our daughter's service and never returned. That was the second week. In the first month, I realized that I was able to hide my growing addiction quite well. I woke up to get my children ready for school and return home to take a sleeping pill to escape the day. I would wake up in time to meet my children at the bus stop. I would pop a sleeping pill once homework was done, which would kick in just after the children were put to bed. My adult family and friends thought that since I was spending a lot of time in the bed, that I was simply experiencing one of my episodes. In the second month, I felt completely alone. While I found an online support group and had made other friends who had lost their babies to stillbirth, I needed more of a physical connection. On one occasion, I reached out to my husband for support. He told me that he still needed his space and hung up on me. I called him back, but he didn't answer. I felt so lost that I needed to feel something than my own grief, despair, and worry. So I cut my wrists, and seeing my own blood woke me up. I wondered if I died, what would happen to my children? So I immediately called my psychiatrist, who told me that she would meet me at the ER. Upon arriving at the ER, my psychiatrist helped me register, and we were immediately taken back to an examination room. We talked while we waited for me to be seen by a doctor, and she gave me an appointment for later that week because she didn't think I was in danger of harming myself or anyone else, for that matter. I was stitched up, sent home, and made things seem normal for my children, who would be coming home from school. Month 3 brought support groups, and I learned how lucky I was to have pictures and memories of a full pregnancy. I was so lucky. Milestones that would never be reached, memories that had yet to be made. Lucky? Me? Month 6 came in, and I returned to work. I was greeted by people who didn't know that my daughter had died. They asked to see pictures. So I eventually began showing them her picture and became bold enough to leave a picture of her on my desk with the photos of my living children. My supervisor didn't think it was healthy for me to have a photo of my miscarried baby on my desk and politely asked me to remove it. But it was healthy for them to continue to put wrapped presents beneath my desk over the course of my maternity leave so I could return to figure out once again what to do with baby items for a baby who lived on my piano. It took me 3 days and my son growing ill for me to walk out, only grabbing my purse and the photos on my desk, never to look back. Can you believe that I was the office manager for a college counseling office? A week later, my oldest daughter, then 5, and I were crossing the street when we were hit by a van. I took the majority of the force from the hit, and my daughter was knocked to the ground by the force. This added physical therapy and pain management to the anxiety, antidepressants, and sleeping pills. August 27th, 2011 brought things full circle. It had been a year since the stillbirth of my third born. It was also my 38th birthday, and a date that has grown to be known as my rebirth. Like most other days, I did not want to get out of bed. I woke up late that Saturday afternoon to hear my son and daughter running up the stairs giggling. My 11-year-old son told my 6-year-old daughter to be quiet because he wanted to surprise me. I composed myself and tried to look somewhat normal. All the while I was praying that the old normal would return and a semblance of normalcy would appear. They burst into the room, singing the happy birthday song. I faked a smile, and my son's smile left. Each child carried a cupcake, my son telling me to make a wish, my daughter asking if she could make Anaya's wish since she wasn't there to do it herself. Then I cried, my first cry of release. After that day, I never used any of those medications again. Hello, my name is Nneka Hall. I was diagnosed with major depression when I was 9. I've suffered many blue periods over the years. Marriage gave me anxiety. The birth of my second child introduced postpartum depression. The birth of my third child gave me PTSD. I experienced a rebirth on my 38th birthday. which was my angel baby's first angelversary. My rebirth gave me purpose. I have a wonderfully supportive therapist. I cry, like I am now. I laugh, I scream, I sing, I think, but not too deeply. I remember, I love, I live. I am now a full-spectrum doula who guides families through the loss of a child from conception through age 2. I'm not done yet. I do this by teaching families that it's okay to openly grieve, talk about, and include their deceased child or children in their everyday lives. This world is so much larger than the vessels our souls are housed in. Take a deep breath, exhale. There, you've experienced your first release. Don't stop there. Release a little at a time until you find that you are free. Thank you. Now I'm done. Up next is Melissa Brown performing Masterpiece.
Imagine me as a little girl singing to my cat Mittens. A girl swimming in the cold, clear waters of Maine. A girl who won spelling bees and had perfect attendance in school. Imagine me turning off lights, checking the stove, unplugging toasters, counting and rearranging, because intrusive thoughts convinced me that something bad was going to happen, and I needed to prevent it. As an adolescent, fear became fears. The unknown was so much greater. Expectations changed, my body changed. At the time, I didn't understand that I feared conflict, failure, disappointing, disappointment, fear of responsibility, fear of vulnerability. Instead, I was afraid of being fat, F-A-T. Counting, checking, making rules, drawing, measuring, calculating, rigid routines, lists, busy mind, racing thoughts, denying hunger, limiting my food. I was powerful. I was calm. I was in control. This was my high, soaring like a bird, until I wasn't. The disgust and self-hatred after eating anything caused panic. If I didn't get rid of the food, everyone would know that I wasn't strong enough, good enough. I had no choice but to flush it away and jog it off. I was ashamed and silent. The vast darkness of depression crept in slowly, bit by bit. And then its enormous embrace took hold of me. It is in that darkness that the enticing voice of death called me by name. And I listened more than once. There were hospitalizations, locked doors, ambulance rides, nutritional supplements, treatment rooms, therapy, tests, bathroom checks, medications, IVs, meal plans, appointments. A painter needs a work surface. She requires training, individual and group, classes and types of paint, tools in a toolbox and techniques. If she wants to improve, she will practice what she has been taught, both in the studio and at home. A successful painter accepts that getting her hands dirty is part of the process, that making mistakes is an opportunity to learn and tries again. A painter may strive to create the ultimate piece of work, a masterpiece. I actually don't paint. Never have. But I imagine that the process of becoming a skilled painter
is much like the ongoing process of recovery. I looked at the meal plans my dietitian created, swallowed the handful of prescribed pills when I felt like it. I was okay paying my therapist to sit with me in complete silence. At least I was keeping my appointments. But it wasn't until ECT, or electroconvulsive shock therapy, unlocked the studio door, and the medications guided me through that door, that I was able to spend time inside and access the life-saving tools that had been there all along. Every instructor has been valuable, even if they showed me what I like and don't like, what works for me and what doesn't. But having a few positive connections has been life-altering. I came to sessions with an empty canvas, not sure how to begin. In time, I began to make brush strokes, eventually use a vibrant purple paint. I learned that I am my own person, a woman named Melissa, that I have my own thoughts, opinions, talents, and yes, flaws. I was shown that I am worth sitting in silence with, but when I do speak, my words have value. I was given a space to practice, make mistakes, name, confront, release, forgive, and accept. I take my toolbox wherever I go because I just never know when I may need it. I pull out name those feelings cards, a journal, deep breaths, bubble bath, music, my swimsuit. It's a big toolbox. Snacks, affirmations, and the color gray. For those times, all I can see is black and white. People are complicated. Relationships are even more complicated. I have learned from my painting peers, my friends, my coworkers, and my husband that I do indeed need people. By risking disappointment and judgment, I experience relationships filled with joy. I have allies. I am never alone, and neither are they. I thought that one day I would finish painting with a masterpiece, a destination of sorts. But my idea of what a masterpiece is has evolved over time. It's not about a masterpiece. I am a work in progress. My brain has its way of thinking, especially during times of stress. I have certain triggers that can distract me from my work. These can be anything from the terror-filled news, a scale, an argument with my husband, or managing the long-term health effects of prior self-destructive behaviors. I am aware of these and turn off the TV, walk away, speak up, and stay mindful. I feel the darkness on the periphery, and I can usually keep it there. When my thoughts prevent me from being present at work or in a conversation, when I notice the fat feeling is back and I want to deny myself the food I both deserve and enjoy, when my body aches for a quiet, dark room with a warm bed, I reach out to my doctor to make a plan. I utilize my relationships, medications, and my tools. A masterpiece is not one painting or the painting. It's painting. Each day that I get out of bed, feed my body and soul, mother my beautiful daughter, partner with my husband, I feel the warmth of the sun, see the beauty in the day. This is a work of art. Some days, I think it may even be a masterpiece. is Sandy Hammond performing Plate Spinners.
Plate spinners. I grew up believing that major mental illness pretty much only showed up between the ages of 18 and 24. I didn't know it could come up and bite you on the ass at the age of 47. Oh yeah. I grew up knowing I had a grandmother who was in a mental institution most of her life, and a grandfather who was hospitalized for major depression. My other grandfather was also rumored to have mental health challenges. This left me with 3 out of 4 grandparents with largely undiagnosed, unexplained, and sometimes untreated mental health issues. My 9-year-old brain thought, oh my God, I'm next. My greatest childhood fear, though unspoken, was that I would become crazy. Amplifying this intense anxiety was the death of my only seemingly healthy grandparent, my paternal grandmother, when I was in the 4th grade. At 17, I felt something was wrong and sought out a therapist. I did this again during and after college. I sought out testing for ADD twice at age 34 and 43. And while I did get some relief with antidepressants, I still didn't fully understand my exhausting brain. Over the past 25 years, I've switched careers several times, and although I sometimes felt scattered, I somehow always landed on my feet. I decided that I could outsmart the crazy by thinking and working harder. I learned that I could protect myself by burying myself in creative projects. I was a plate spinner, a wheeler and dealer, or so I thought, until I did land my own ass in the psych ward. I was winning! Okay, I did it! Okay, I see now that a few factors led to my hospitalization. When I was 44, I was let go from a really good job and I felt a profound sense of failure. I decided to do something great, something to create true longevity on my resume. I became obsessed with creating a nonprofit. I sacrificed everything: self-care, my social life, my physical health, my relationship, my finances. My work defined me completely. I donated my time and burned through my assets, thinking a salary was just around the corner through fundraising. My work was timely, and soon I did have donors, I had volunteers, I had members. The Boston Globe called, they ran a story. Then an AP story went around the world, and then emails came in from China, the UK, Iowa City, Chicago, and Leipzig, Germany. I was buzzing. I had 4 different NPR interviews, a national NPR broadcast. The New York Times ran a story. Katie Couric's producer called. I thought it was spam. Oh, wait, it's not spam. Oprah magazine ran a story. In what was probably hypomania, I let my work take over my apartment with no regard for my then live-in boyfriend. The living room became my office and the dining room my rehearsal space. Around this time, I flew to Cincinnati and then Amsterdam, back-to-back trips to present at conferences. I returned from Europe severely jet-lagged from red eyes and overstimulated by new medication. The day after, all of my plates came crashing to the ground, every single one. Speaking on the phone with my parents, suddenly I knew I could not handle anything. I threw my phone to the ground mid-conversation and watched it shatter as if in slow motion. Hyperventilating, I ran next door and asked my beautiful neighbor to take me to the ER, where I was held overnight and then transferred to McLean's, where I received the best care of my life. So if there are any McLean's employees here, since then, I have learned that bipolar has a spectrum just like depression or autism, and you can be on that spectrum without having full-blown mania or psychosis or suicidal ideation. My own ignorance helped perpetuate my lack of a diagnosis. What I hope you will take with you tonight is this. If it took me 30 years of seeking to get a comprehensive and accurate diagnosis, then there are others out there who are suffering in the same situation, who desperately need help. My heart goes out to anyone who is working so hard to hide their troubles, to the plate spinners, the wheelers and dealers, the circus performers, because we are exhausted from covering things up and yet wondering what the hell is wrong. I see now that I had a thread of bipolar patterns and vulnerabilities that didn't explode until I was under extreme duress. And yet I can point to moments in my history where my behavior was definitely off. According to NAMI's website, 3/4 of all major mental illnesses do emerge by age 24. I was right. Sadly, the emergence does not always lead to diagnosis and treatment. The 30 years I spent spinning plates is my own lived experience that answers can take a long time to find. Since then, I've also come to see how our culture rewards workaholism. While everyone was congratulating me on that Oprah article, I was privately coming undone. In my 20s, when I worked 14-hour days alone in the office until 10, I was praised, but I was very lonely and my life was unbalanced. People pat workaholics on the back, and that can be very toxic. I've learned that while medications are important, I have to meet them in the middle. I am responsible for avoiding triggers and pursuing activities that keep me balanced and well. Just as I have to avoid certain allergic triggers to manage my asthma, so do I have to avoid triggers for my mood, such as isolation, overwork, lack of sleep. I would not be where I am today without the love of my family. My dad used to make up stories for me about a girl named Tippecanoe in Tyler 2. The girl who didn't know when to stop. In one of his stories, Tippecanoe tells her dad she's going to dig her way to China in the backyard. Her father brings her a shovel. And later, when she's deep in the hole, he brings her a trash bag full of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches so that she can keep going. My family has been bringing me that bag of sandwiches my whole life. They don't tell me I'm foolish for wanting to dig to China, or spin plates, or start a nonprofit. But every now and then they have to remind me to take a nap. Plate spinners like me have our place in society. We need help spinning less plates at a time, like 6 instead of 12. God forbid 3. And we get to wear sparkly sneakers like these. Thank you. We may need gentle reminders that we don't have to be in all 3 circus rings at once. We don't have to dazzle every minute, even in shoes like this. And we can rest between takes. But we do have a lot to contribute when focused, and we are capable of great love, and we can take our place along with the rest of the cast. I'd like to leave you with a little joy. 7 months after my hospitalization, I met the most loving man. I'm not sure I would have recognized the beauty of his soul before my treatment, but I did, and I'm healthier, and he's here. And to all the plate spinners, including me, I offer my greatest love and acceptance. You may just need someone in your life like my Steve, who the other night said, "Hey babe, put your laptop down, let's go relax." Our next performers are Audrey Grubb and her brother Evan Grubb performing Falling.
Having an eating disorder is like having another person living inside of you that constantly torments every thought, action, and feeling you have. For me, it was waking up in the morning and knowing that all that matters is how little I can eat, how long I can work out, and how small I can become. I spent many years of my life trying to stay afloat in the midst of an eating disorder trying to tear me down. As a 19-year-old, I was broken, fragile, and lost. I thought the only way for me to find a purpose and happiness in my life was through restricting what I ate and over-exercising. I knew that while my life was transitioning into adulthood, the one stable aspect of my experience was my eating disorder. Anorexia became my identity, the only way that I knew myself and the only thing that I felt connected to. I somehow lost along the way the actual most important part of my life, my family. As a relational person, I forgot the power of love and support from others because I didn't think that I deserved it. Having an eating disorder convinced me that I was not worthy of anyone's love and that the only thing that I was capable of doing was losing weight. When I first entered into a residential treatment program, I started to understand how disconnected I was from the world and living in a false illusion of connection to my eating disorder. After a few months in this program, I was able to go on a day pass home to see my brother Evan graduate from high school. My mom picked me up, and as soon as I got in the car, she played a song that Ev had written. Tears rolled down my cheek as the words sunk in, and my mom said, "This song is for you, Aj. Ev wrote this song for you." I realized then how much my mental illness affected the people that meant the most to me, and how it drove me away from the most important people in my life. On the other side of my recovery now, I'm starting to realize how important love and connection is for everyone in their healing process. Without the support from my loving family, close friends, and treatment team, I would not have been able to see for myself that I am capable of much more than losing weight, that I deserve a life without constant torment, and that I am worthy of my own love. Support can come in all different ways, and sometimes the most unexpected gestures hold the most meaning. Ev supported me through his music by writing a song that rebuilt my connection to him. He never had to say anything to me directly for me to know that he was with me every step of the way and that he always will be. This song is the single most meaningful aspect of my recovery, and we want to share it with you in a hope to show the power of real connection and its ability to bring people out of their darkest pain.
I wrote this song for 2 reasons. One was to help Audrey through her own sort of emotional journey, but the other was just to sort of get some words on a page and to kind of vent. I think it's important to note that there's 2 sides to this thing. There's, recovery and struggle on one side, and there's confusion and support on another. And they're both equally important. This song is called Falling. I wrote it about 6 years ago. We've come a long way, and it all still rings very true.
Colors fade into the night and take away my light. I have tried to search the night, but dark is all I find.
It's all I find. I can only fly if I can land. I could hold your sky within my hand. I can be your eyes if you're calling, calling, and I'll catch you if you're falling. Look for me when you are down and listen to my sound. You are closer than you know, the places you could go, that we could go. I can only fly if I can land. I could hold your sky within my hand. I can be your eyes if you're calling, calling, and I'll catch you if you're falling. Show me something else. Show me something worth jumping for. Show me something else. Show me something, I'll jump for you and I'll fall. I will fall. I will fall if I have to. I can only fly if I can land. I could hold your sky within my hand. I can be your eyes if you're calling, calling, and I'll catch you if you're. I can only fly if I can land. I could hold your sky within my hand. I can be your eyes if you're calling, calling, and I'll catch you when you fall.
Thank you. And next we have Jamie Davenport performing her piece titled What If?
The question was what if, and the topic was you. My parents had begun to divorce when our fledgling relationship was new, and my brain couldn't handle my massive feelings or the idea of my own possible relationship doom. So instead of staying in the here and now, my mind took an alternative route. The setting is Ireland. I moved there to get away from him because just a month prior, I awoke with my head in a tailspin. My vision fogged and I was choking for air. My heart felt like pins and needles and I wanted to pull out my hair. The night before my initial panic attack, I read an online listicle entitled 15 Signs You Don't Like Him As Much As You Think You Do. Number 3 said you don't like his clothes, and I thought of that goddamn orange fanny pack. I fell asleep, tossing and turning, thinking of signs 1 through 15 that our relationship was inherently wrong and boring. And it all seemed silly, but in the context of my life, my parents were divorcing, I was moving across the Atlantic, and the him in question questioned all my known truths about what it meant to be romantic. He was kind and patient and funny as well, but he wasn't an alcoholic or abusive, so I was confused as hell. That morning, I awoke so panicked and pained, I could not possibly have known what was going on inside my brain. Because overnight disaster moved in the form of doubt so pervasive, it shattered everything. A seed had been planted deep in my brain that asked the question, what if, over and over and over and over and over and over again. The question was, what if I don't love him? And it ate me from the inside out. Because when we think about obsessive compulsion, we think about washing hands and checking locks. We don't think about morality-based obsession, which attacks our very thoughts. So I broke up with him and moved away, unaware that I was slowly going into decay. Once in Ireland, things got so much worse. I had panic attacks daily. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I'd check my own thoughts constantly, but my mind was stuck on repeat. What if I don't love him? 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 I Googled constantly as it gave me a moment's release. I read every article on the topic of love, searching questions like, can you love someone you don't love? Can you love someone your mind is telling you don't love? Can you be with someone even if you don't love them, but you don't know you don't love them? It would take me months to realize that in the nature of my question hid the answer. I was so petrified of not loving someone, the fear of it spread through my mind like a cancer. In a moment of clarity, I invited him to visit, thinking maybe if I saw him, I'd stop asking the question and I'd just know the answer to it. The night before he arrived, panic fled through me like lava. I laid in my bed, grasping my head, banging it against my pillow, crying, please, don't ask it again. But the what if remained triumphant. Every time I had a loving thought, what if I don't love him, blared like a trumpet. When I arrived at the airport on Christmas Eve, traditional Irish music was playing and I had to do everything not to dry heave. I saw his long hair through hordes of people and let out a gasp. I ran to him and fell into his arms, 30 pounds lighter than he remembered me, and covered in unseeable scars. I sobbed as I touched him, the whole time my mind worrying, what if I don't love him? But I ignored it as best I could because he was there and that was good. Despite all odds, we had a miraculous trip. For the first time in months, I could do something other than overthink. When he left a week later, I held him and shook. The words, I love you, escaped my mouth, despite my mind's favorite mental hook. When he was gone, doubt came back again, and this time much stronger. What if I hate him? My mind began to aggressively ponder. Somewhere deep inside my sickness, I still existed, and although all my rational thought was gone, I refused to let my mind take my relationship with it. So I cut my trip short and moved back to Boston with the goal to beat my brain with my heart. I've never worked on something harder. Through months of therapy and Ativan and Zoloft, I finally started to peek my head above water. Like a patron saint, this man remained loyal. He held me as I cried, what if I don't love you? Over and over and over and over and over. It would take me a year to realize the scariest truth. To accept that you love someone means accepting you could lose. I have OCD, which means I couldn't handle uncertainty. To choose to love someone, flaws and all, meant choosing to fly, but also acknowledging that I could fall. My brain could not compute, and instead did everything, and I literally mean everything, to block me from getting hurt. But lucky for me, my brain lost its fight. through months of suffering and debilitating doubt, through endless panic attacks and mental checking, through Googling until my eyes were numb and making a real mess of everything. The question was, what if? And the topic was you. The answer is yes. It turns out I do. Up next, we have Marty Levin with his performance Up From Darkness.
just wanted to say that it's an immense honor to be with these beautiful, beautiful people. These people are like from another planet. I don't know where they ship them in from, but I can't tell you how much I love these people. And what an honor to be here to do this privileged task, to try to help create a society that gives no stigma to mental illness. And in my own life, I suffered, I suffered for so many years, since far back as I can remember, with depression, and it was so debilitating. Everybody thought I was the life of the party, you know, the proverbial life of the party, but behind that clown face was somebody suffering tremendously. And with good graces and great fortune, I found Nichiren Buddhism, and I started chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and literally saved my life. I mean, I wouldn't be here today without that. I have to acknowledge it. And overcome tremendous amount of that depression, most of it. And I just want to acknowledge Elizabeth and Leslie for their immense hearts, the heart as big as this room and bigger. And so beautifully they supported us through everything, and with a shining, shining smile at all times. And also Jennifer for starting this amazing, amazing project called This Is My Brave. Please continue to support this organization any way you can, because this is really magnificent. I want to thank you so much. Here is Jason Wright performing a poem about the importance of writing poems.
Hey, hi, how are you? I've got a really lot of things to say here, so I'm just going to get to it. Is that okay? All right. A poem about the importance of writing poems. I have probably written more poems in my time here on this planet than I can remember. But what I do remember of my poems is that they have gotten me through diagnosis, to treatment, to death in the family, with headphones on, with cigarette-stained fingertips, writing poems, anxious thoughts accompanying me. Every red line train stop, hoping it would get better and knowing it would when I would get off. My mind would finally stop pacing around the train station. But if those batteries died, those thoughts got so much louder, and it happened many times. Thirsty. Anyway, back to this poem. Free prose. I use the words free prose when I want to write free poems. I use the words free prose when I want to tell a story. Free prose when I want to write without judgment. I write quick, let my feet hit the pavement like a marathon runner. Play the piano, let each note fall into place, let the paint splash like Pollock, who, by the way, was diagnosed an alcoholic, whose paintings stand in the Tate Museum. I was once a Rembrandt, reference the poem I wrote titled Waste of Paint. I once was Tom Brady. I once was a manic psych ward celebrity. I once was depressed, smoking in medicine-stained hallways. I was diagnosed and sent home from countless psych ward stays. But yet I stand. I stand strong, so many years gone. I still hold on to that thing called hope. That I can cope, get through this mentality, this ill mentality, the idea that the past is behind me and that the sun still shines with me. My mind, it might be a work of God and the devil, both playing position in my temple. It's really not that simple. What does medication do but numb you, frustrate you, and sedate you, maybe save you like God do? Maybe I should go back to the beginning, write my way through to get through to you. I was born in Troy, New York, not Michigan. Moved to Grafton. Then at 8 years old, I moved to Mansfield, Massachusetts. right outside of Boston and Providence, safely stashed in a little nice town, a small little pin on the map. I'm the youngest of 4. My brother is 5 years older than me. My sisters are 12 years older than him. It's just one brother. I want to say more, but I don't want to offend them. I love them. My dad and mom divorced when I was 15. That's when I started Oddball Magazine, which I still carry with me, oddballmagazine.com, just saying. That's when I was diagnosed ADHD. No big deal, I thought. Kept on, found pot, got good grades, went to college, and in the first year I began to lose sleep. Increasing the weed, I thought I didn't need Ritalin or any medication. Nope, just lived like Bob Marley. But I still couldn't sleep. Eventually, lack of sleep broke me, and I had my first manic episode. That was something I never had before, and something I never knew was possible, something I couldn't control. I wrote and thought I just had a strong soul, and through it all, I kept on writing those poems. So many poems. Oh, remember this poem? It's about poems. I was 21, the first one. I was 22 when the depression came on, and I went back to that school, and soon the manic came calling, and I walked myself 36 miles to a hospital stay. I wrote a book of poems that was called Journal of a Madman. I wrote it in McLean. I never published it. It was really anti-Bush. And if you ever want to know what that manic episode was like, definitely read that book. That was my last hospital stay extended. Things eventually got better. I made friends with a girl on my first day at work, and presently I write this poem lying beside her. I traveled the world with her, and last week just got back from Paris, and in 2014 I asked her for her hand in marriage. Was it her love that got me through? Absolutely. With her help, I enrolled back in school. Got my degree in 2008 and the English Award of Achievement. Thank you, Jill Burrill. Thank you, Bunker Hill. They're a great school. Jill Burrill was a great professor. You would have learned something if you were her teacher. All right, anyway. What? All right. Started performing poetry at speakouts and became a beast, a regular Walt Whitman, who, by the way, was a manic depressive and one of the best poets who's ever written. I have written so many poems, and now I teach it like a prescription. And yeah, I have anxiety. I'm smoke-free, drug-free, and hoping to have children. I'm a beast at this recovery thing. I've been working on myself for a long time. I read Bukowski for therapy and Chuck Palahniuk for a laugh. And I'm in love with Leonard Cohen, Sylvia Plath, and Emily Dickinson. And one of them, if not all of them, has some form of mental illness. And all of them, yes, all of them, yeah, all of them were brilliant. I'll listen to Pete Rock and hip hop and just go off. Or I'll put on like Philip Glass when I really want to try something new, or jazz when I want to free prose it. But yeah, poems. Remember this poem? It's about how I write poems. Yeah, poems, they got me through. It's one thing to have a mental illness. It's another thing to let it define you. I'm a peer specialist now and teach recovery as a meaningful pursuit. It's lifelong, but it's possible. I'm living proof. And I'm an editor of Oddball Magazine. Held on to that dream, still publish it daily. Still have anxiety and a diagnosis, but don't let it fade me. And yes, life is beautiful, so beautiful. Once I smoked and suffered with mental Tourette's. I think that's a thing. I think it's a thing. It's got to be, because that's what it is. I don't know how to explain it, but I think it's a thing. You can coin it after me if you want. All right. Once I smoked and suffered with mental Tourette's, freaked out so bad, lost so many friends, could barely go outside or even speak this poem out loud. Definitely not in front of a crowd or even be on this little soapbox I am on right now. But now I'm proud because I'm different and exist in different statistics. And now I can get through this life, no doubt. Don't get me wrong, I have my difficulties, but I still have so much to prove. With my wife beside me, I write this to you. This might not be the best story, but it is mine. And I haven't even told you everything in my life, or even told you the greatest hits. I could tell you I went on Wheel of Fortune and was super anxious. Did not win. Not even close. Bankrupt twice. Lose a turn once. I don't even use vowels normally when I play, but I had like $800 and I asked for a vowel. I actually looked it online, and they looked at me, and there's like this Wheel of Fortune thing online, and they basically said, he played the dumbest game of Wheel of Fortune ever. But there's like people who obsess over this stuff, and that's fine. I love Wheel of Fortune. Cool. I was anxious. Can't believe I'm still up here. All right. I got a lot more pages left. I'm doing this. I could tell you I'm a peer specialist, which I already did, but that's okay because I'm super proud of it. And I'm writing another book, a book of poems I wrote on the red line. Most of them are anxiety-induced. Those were my thoughts at the time. I also have another book. Yeah, I usually have it on me, so if you have $10 on you, I'll sign a copy. I don't know, I could tell you a lot of things, but I can tell you this, and let me slow it down so you can hear it. This is like the slowest I've ever read a poem in my life. It's because of the pronunciation and everything, you know. But I'm going to slow it down even more for you, because this is ridiculous how slow I'm going. Mental illness is just a label you put on someone brilliant. Mental illness is just a DSM-5 definition. Mental illness is not mental illness. It is simply a condition that some people have to live with. And yes, mental illness is stigmatized, and some don't understand it. And they blame it for violence in the streets with no facts behind it. And yes, psychology is a science. And mania is beautiful. Anyone who has been through it knows how the world speaks the truth to you. And anxiety killed my nephew. Not a drug addiction. And I know one thing, mental illness is not just medication. It's really just a part of my life, but it's not the whole part. I have a loving wife with a good heart. I have friends and family, and yeah, I have anxiety. Sometimes my thoughts broadcast. I'm not a huge fan of live TV and sometimes talk to plants. Just kidding about that last part. But maybe there was a time when I lived and died by the pen, writing as fast as I could because that's all I could do to get through the anxiety, the paranoia, the diagnosis of schizoaffective, which is supposed to be a pretty bad one, so I'm working on it. But look at me now, kind of jet lagged from getting back from Paris, when if you saw me in 2010 on the train, writing feverishly with headphones on, and you probably did, because I was on the train all the time, you would never think I would be this international jet setter. That's the fastest part of the poem. But then again, people can get better. People can do great things. I won't lie and say I didn't have anxiety because I did, but I did it. Because I have a condition doesn't mean I won't ever be anxious, but I have a life and I live it. So here I am writing a poem about writing poems. Writing in my home on a Saturday night, not a eulogy, not a letter to a lost loved one. Nope, writing about that little word, hope. A long poem about that little word, hope. Maybe chaotic, non-linear, almost like a manic episode. One that I can control. One that fills me with that most powerful of words called hope. And with hope comes strength. Hope for the future, with strength to move forward, strength to keep moving, with the motion and the movement. So I make my words heard, and I change every one of your mindset. Mental illness doesn't define me. Nope, it doesn't. It makes me shine like a diamond. It makes me happy at the moment. It makes me write poems. Remember how this poem was about poems? Yeah, I'm no longer alone. I might be anxiety-stricken or under control. Depends how strong the dark roast, or how much sleep I had the night before. And most likely my hands will be shaking when I read this poem to you out loud, grasping the paper, sweat on the brow, maybe sounding shaky, not so confident, but not right now. I am freaking dominant at the moment. But right now they are typing on the keys so confidently, sometimes depends on the day or week. And during the week I'm a peer specialist and speak to schools and give hope, that powerful four-letter word, because really that's what I can do. That depression isn't a death sentence. That hearing voices won't break you. That talking to plants or thinking you can do it, that I lived those experiences makes me grateful. Because schizoaffective once scared the shit out of me. But now I just shake it off and keep moving. I have too much on my mind, too much stuff to be doing. That every time I think that it's the end, I break on through like Morrison and get through it. And so can you. You also can do this. OCD is fine with me. Bipolar, Hendrix had it. And Van Gogh was depressed, and Monet painted water lilies. I saw them, I could smell the paint, I was just at it. And Princess Leia had mania, and she was an author, and a friggin' princess. And Lincoln was our best president, and he did it living with depression. And Beethoven was deaf and wrote the dopest music. So what makes you think you can't do it? Talk to me after the show, I'll tell you how I did it. I did it through poems. Remember how this poem is about poems? I did it because I'm different, and I live a manic life, and I live it well. And that's it for now. But I got a lot more poems to write, a lot more stories to tell. And on I must stop now, put this poem on pause, kiss my wife softly on her head and thank her for all she does, because I think it all turned around for me when we fell in love. And I will write another poem tomorrow with a cup of coffee, and another one when I'm anxious, another one again at lunch, and another one at breakfast, because I'm a poet with schizoaffective. But now I stop this poem suddenly, take a breath, and exit. And finally, here is Hana Khan performing I Simply Am.
What a night! I pretty much always know what I'm gonna say, and I'm like so floored and speechless right now seeing these performances. And I think what I want to say is this: I'm turning 25 in a few months, and I spent until I turned 24 thinking that 25 would be as far as I ever made it because of my mental illness. And I sat down tonight, and you guys started the show, and I just had this moment where I was like, I did it. I'm surviving. I'm not only surviving, I am thriving. And I found that self-love is truly the answer. Self-love led me to inner peace. Self-love is what allowed me to have an episode with my bipolar 4 weeks ago and get in and out of it within a week because I knew I was okay. I had suicidal thoughts and knew I was okay and felt this love for myself that I just want to share with the world. I want people who struggle with mental illness to understand, to love themselves just as they are, and it will lead to inner peace, and it's the most beautiful thing we can ever experience in this lifetime. And with that, I'm going to perform a song about just being, and it's called I Simply Am. Oh, and also, if you dig me and what I'm about, I'm at Hana Khan Official on Instagram and Facebook. And outside in the lobby, I have an email list that I would love to have you be a part of. I send out a bi-weekly newsletter about all these amazing life things, including my music stuff. I also have CDs, business cards. Come talk to me after the show. We'll figure it all out. This is I Simply Am. Starting to wonder why I never seem to win. I always seem to lose. And if my
My heart is broke, that's all. No, I'm afraid to let it go. Now that it's mending, I'm scared to let it show. But I listen to the wind, I listen to the music. One day I'll wake up and find I'm thriving my way through it. And when I dance like I've never danced before. With my wings I soar, I'm climbing higher than I knew I could. And I can't stop, won't stop till I find something great. Oh, this is my life, this is your life, this is our life. We get to choose to keep on giving. Can't stop, won't stop, this is the life I'm living. I simply am, simply am. And I can't stop living, won't stop. 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 Oh, and I'm climbing higher than I knew I could. Yeah. Can't stop, won't stop till I find something good. Yeah, this is my life, this is your life, this is our life. We get to choose, get to keep on giving. Can't stop, won't stop. This is the life I'm living. I simply am. Simply am. Simply can't stop, won't stop living, can't stop living, can't stop living, won't stop. Can't stop, won't stop living, can't stop living, can't stop living, won't stop.
Well, what do you think? Woo! Our incredibly brave cast was able to shine a light tonight on a topic we don't talk about enough. We'd like to take a moment to ask our audience to be brave with us and to please stand up if you've experienced a mental health disorder or if you love someone who has. We are all affected by mental illness, and simply being here today was an incredible start to building upon a movement of people who are willing to be more open and supportive to those struggling. This is what it means to live brave. There we go.
So, if you were moved by what you witnessed here tonight and you'd like to make a contribution to This Is My Brave to help us continue this vitally important work, please text the word BRAVE to 401444. You'll receive a reply text with a link, and when you click the link, you'll be able to make a donation in the amount of your choice. Or choose to become a Brave Champion with a monthly gift of just $10 or more. Info on how to join us is in your program. Thank you for your support.
We would love to join you in the lobby where we can gather and visit with some of our sponsors and to visit the Depressed Cake Shop. But first, how about one more round of applause for storytellers and artists?